Okay, guys, we'll try and finish up here based on the polling. Second up was a look at the S&P, and given all this volatility, that doesn't surprise me much. So let's just dig in here. Now, we've been through the S&P obviously several times. I do think we've got to make a bit of an adjustment here, given all this volatility that we're seeing, and it is certainly extreme as we deal with the central banks, some of the administration shenanigans. I'll leave it at that and leave the politics out of it. The reason I've adjusted here, and I'm putting the 3 here. Now it's always been a little bit of a question mark. Do we have 1 2 1 2 here, or was this the 1 and this the 3? But I think at this point in time, you've got to go with the 1 2 1 2 and work this as a completed impulse for the third, because all of this action here, for a couple of reasons here, it looks more consistent with a wave 4 than with an absolute topping pattern. And part of that is just trying to reconcile how, if we're going to retrace, if this were the top, and I'll just use the '09 low here, and we come up here, if we're going to come down to a 50% retracement, which would make sense, you can kind of see how that would all fit in here. Prior consolidation before, here's Trump, right? Here's the 16 low, right? There's the Trump era. So coming back down to test that would make sense, but that would be, we'd be looking for it, right? If it were a second, we'd be looking for it down here at least at the 50. So given what's happening here, I think it's less likely, right? So of course, anything's possible, right? And we have this, right? We've seen this megaphone pattern that's in play here. Now, what I think, given the price action that we see here, that I know you can't see in there here, I'm going to get there in a second, but I think it's more probable, nothing more than that. That's all we ever get. We have a WXY going in here to set up the 4 before going again for the 5. So, see, if it's correctly labeled, if that's the W, and we get a clear ABC here on the idea that we've got a W here, and I'm going to propose to you that what we've seen here is an X wave, that the next move down, if you think about the symmetry of what we'd be looking at here, get off of there, for this to go into just some, unless we had something radical here where we had a big extension, it seems less likely we'd do anything beyond that. Than even if you just extend the megaphone pattern out a bit here, we get all those wicks in here. I mean, that would be interesting, right? We did something like that. You'd have to have a much bigger, like the whole thing, the symmetry is getting stretched here a little bit, but that would, let's not eliminate that possibility. But even still here, if it were a 4, right, it doesn't invalidate the idea that it's a 4, right? We got a long way to go to the wave 1. So it's a tricky one. It's tricky to put that to be landing real hard here that this is the 3. Right, and that we're not, that the top's not in, right? Because this is questionable. All right, so let's just go into the subdivision here and see if we can make a little more sense of it, and we'll get into that here. But just that is certainly, something to be. You'd want to have an alternate. You'd want to have a primary and a secondary alternate count here, so you had this kind of mapped out. Should this start to unfold and really unravel, and there's certainly enough macro trends going on around the planet where something substantial could certainly happen, right? We've got all of the ingredients for a pretty substantial sell-off. All right, rather than going through them individually, I'm pretty sure you guys are keeping up with what's going on across the globe here. So as this, if indeed we are going to see a retracement here, the depth of it here is going to be very interesting to track. Now let's go dig into what we're looking at here. Let's start on a 4-hour. So we had been considering the idea here. So if this is the 3, so here's our megaphone pattern here, and I'm kind of let's get this back here. So we'll get right back on that pivot. Okay, so here's that idea. Well, part of the what's influencing the thinking here is that this with that, it looks much more like an ABC, which would accommodate the X pattern here. The ABC here is very easy. That's very solid, right? We've been tracking that. That's been not too hard to spot that. So that ABC down here is a potential W does kind of fit. Now, if the prior thinking was, which had always been somewhat problematic, was if this was the 3 and we had an ABC and we're going to put the 4 here, right, rather than way down here. If we're going to put the 4 here, well, the length of time of that correction relative to the 9-year bull market was way off. So lowered the probability. So right away, your first thought is, oh, that can't be that. Well, it's less likely that we've just completed the entire correction off the '09 low in, what is this, 4 months. We corrected a 9-year bull in 4 months. Right, just common sense, that seems less likely here. So it's the fact that we didn't get a rip-roaring 1, 2, 3, and we got what at this point, again, seems more probable that we have an ABC here given this relationship. I'm much more inclined to put the X here. Now, if we start to rock again here, and this is just going to, as we're looking at it today, right? So it's 400 down one day, 400 back the other day. If this is just going to rock on here, and latest we're anticipating, market seems to be anticipating 2, 3 rate hikes coming. I mean, you can talk yourself into understanding how we could do that, but how are you going to count this? Right, and then to some degree, it's a function of what's happening here since we hit the pivot here. So if it's an ABC here, well, of course, we're going to be tracking. Well, let's get this off here. We have had a break from the absolute all-time high here to the low. We've had a very slight break happen today. Let me zoom in here. We've had a very slight break of the golden zone. All right, so that's enough, right? Just enough to break it. So bull's ball, no question. It's their ball here, but even if we go up here and finish, if this is an X, right, what are we looking for? We're looking for an ABC. Well, it's already a little bit of it's a struggle to get a 5 down there. The AB, that's clear enough. It's not ideal, right? The symmetry's off, but there's no other way to count that. You certainly don't want to go 1, 2, 3. So something completes here. Now, given what's followed, this also is a bit problematic. It's not obvious. So what do we have here? This certainly looks like an ABC to me. And then again, ABC coming down. Now, it is technical, so I'm going to go to a 60. So with this, we get the slight break here. So let me just show that to you again so you can see it. So from here to here, right, there's the slight break this morning of the 65, right? So that's enough. So there's no sell-side algorithm sitting there waiting to push this down. So we've broken that resistance. That's, again, bull's ball. But if we look here, what we've done, so you've got two things to consider. So first is the all the way, right? This would be dominant here. We a little shy for a front run here, but then we do have another pivot here, and sure enough, right? If we get it right on there, right into the golden zone. So dominant to dominant, secondary, right? So here's the dominant. So the secondary pivot, ABC, down we go. That's yesterday's action, right to the golden zone, right? Remember, no random pivots. So you're looking at that going, oh shit, man, that thing's free falling. Wonder where it's going to go. Right to a golden zone. So I wouldn't bet against that getting that target. Right? Now, shit, may do it today. May do it before the close today or overnight. It's just, I wouldn't bet against that. Right? I wouldn't be up here going, oh, well, we're coming into prior resistance up here. I think I'm going to sell it. I think that would be overly aggressive here, right? So, I wouldn't do that, right? So the idea that we're going to go up here and finish that, well, again, we don't have to stop there just because there's an algo target there. There's a couple things here we might look at. So this seemed to be a factor here. So perhaps we've got some prior structure that would come in here as we approach that. Is that enough to be front running off of that? Well, you've got others here, right? So some of this here, likely these are going to be little resistance points as we come up to that. Again, doesn't mean we can't get through them, but they're there. I'd wick all of them off here, right? So all of these, so that's right on the target. So if we're going to come up and get that, and we start to get some weakness after that, where are we? What's the count? If this is the X wave, some sort of diagonal. So even that it's hard to put a label on it just yet. Well, one, we got to see how far this goes. I'm very reluctant to try and turn this into a diagonal, thinking 1, 2, 3, 4. You'd have some limitations and you'd have some invalidation points here because right off the bat, now let's just check it here. So the length of the A from the B, well, damn, it is long enough. So AB, we do, so this is, you know, that's very common for an ABC. Again, to try and turn this into a diagonal, boy, I would do that very reluctantly. It just doesn't have the right look to it. It's possible, though. It's possible we're back here retrofitting this into a, I guess we'd have to go 1, 2, ABC, ABC. Is that, maybe that's just the A going in right now. So it's definitely high risk to be trading in here. So we can get a set of median lines on this just to get some context, a little bit of structure. So we have a potentially there's a corner pocket here. Now that may have already just real. So note what we just did. Let me get that right on there. That's pretty close. Right? Did we tag it? Let's get this right on there. So it looks like we're not quite there yet. Those look like they're pretty solid. So one more reason not to bet against getting up there, right? At some point, so this corner pocket here looks highly probable to make the median line. We're not quite there yet, but getting up to that looks to me like that'd be a C wave here. So all I can see so far here is I got an ABC followed by an ABC, and I'm just going to wait and see how far that goes before I change the count structure here. I don't know what the hell's going on there. So when I'm not sure, I'm certainly not going to try and post up either a trade that I would recommend for you guys or anything that I would take. I think the trading intraday has been, well, you guys know we've got a lot of day traders that are working, you know, in the S&P with all the stock indexes, the YM and the NQ as well. But to try and label this and then position yourself for a trade, I think it's just too soon to do it. This could just break so many different ways. So first I want to see, does this complete? All right, if that completes and we get the median line, okay, then I get some reference points. I get a technical pivot up here. But I got to see what happens after that. We going down? We're going to keep going up. All right, how do you know it takes one tweet to completely change the complexion of the market and to completely change what's happening in the day. Right, you can change it short term, but right, a tweet, unless there's policy to go along with it, not likely to change the ultimate evolution here, right? Because all it takes is another tweet tomorrow, or China does something differently, and then the market crashes. So we all can recognize the extreme volatility here. So we have, for option sellers, you've got out of the money premium that's mighty attractive, but I just don't see directionally enough here to say, okay, I know right where I am. I don't, right? And if I'm not sure where we are, excuse me, if I'm not sure where we are in this count, I just need more reveal. I need the market to reveal itself more here. I just am not sure. So I don't, you know, we get up to something like this, maybe you're back here saying, well, it's fucking ugly, but I guess we can turn that into a diagonal. But I don't want to go there right now and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, we got a leading diagonal and we're off to new highs, because I don't see that just yet. So I'm repeating myself here. So I would be very cautious here about any sizable position. I think the only thing that's particularly attractive would be selling way out of the money puts and calls. So maybe some sort of a delta neutral spread, just taking advantage of the decay. I'd do nothing naked. I would do zero naked. Oh, and that's a whole nother strategy about how to do that and maintain a delta relatively neutral bias here. So let's not digress into that. But certainly, this is not an ideal time to be buying options because the volatility is so high. So I'd be very cautious in here on any sort of directional play here. Who fucking knows, right? Here, what we do, the things we do know, right? I've got a corner. Well, actually, what I have here, I do have a golden corner. I have a golden corner right here, right? That is just a few ticks from reaching its target. right? That I can say with certainty. Okay, I know what happened there. All right, here's my golden corner. I know a high probability of getting that median line. I've got an algo target right here. I don't know what happens there. I got to wait and see what happens there. Does the market just keep blowing through it, or do we get a pivot there? If we get a pivot, then the idea, I mean, this could be, no, there's no way to turn that into an impulse. It's such an ugly force fit. It's not there. So to think 1-2, I think is a mistake. Unless it's going to turn into a diagonal and the ABC becomes a one wave of a leading diagonal on the way down, but it's way too soon to put that label on it. So you're kind of stuck here. As an Elliott trader, with the count is so unclear and could resolve so many different ways, I don't think the Elliott is helping you here. Until we get more information. Eventually, right, it'll be helpful, but right now, it's not doing much for me. It's not helping me here. This is what I see next. Now, what happens here? If we start to come down and we get something like that, okay, I know, all right, I know where I am. If we blow higher here and we're going up to something like this, that's back to just pulling everything off the chart and just look at it from scratch and say, okay, let's take it with fresh eyes. What could be going on here? So until then, I'd have an alert on this. I'd want to know when that gets triggered, what happens there. This could get more revealing and easier to identify by the end of the week, certainly, right, based on what happens here. Or, but this is less likely, here we just go sideways. I think there's just way too much, market's way too nervous, algos are just firing. And again, one random tweet and all bets are off. So approach with caution in here, guys. This is high risk trading. I know when it moves, right, it's very appealing because the pay is so big, but that bites the other way as well. So approach with caution here, and hopefully by the end of the week, what's Tuesday? By Thursday, if we're back here looking at the S&P, we might be able to count this a little bit better. All right, guys, there you go.